Okay, let us get started with task 1, lab task number 1. Buy a domain from Domain Registrar and associate the domain as a custom domain in Azure Active Directory. Domain to be purchased techtalent.xyz and associate it with techtalentxyz.onmicrosoft.com. Please don't get surprised by this lab task. Definitely it's not a practical question to be asked in any exam. Asking a candidate to purchase a domain and associate with Azure Active Directory is something which is not a practical one to expect. However, this is one of the key topic one as an architect need to be familiar with. This would be the first step for anyone to set up an organization in the cloud. So I have recorded this entire process of purchasing a domain name from a domain registrar and setting up a custom domain in Azure Active Directory as part of this lab task. Since I'm going to do this whole exercise for non-production or just a learning purpose, I'll go with the cheapest possible domain name. I'm using GoDaddy as a domain registrar to purchase this domain name, because GoDaddy offers domain names starting from less than a price of a coffee, especially domain names ending with .xyz or cheapest one. Just less than a $2 we can get a domain. This whole exercise of creating an Azure Active Directory, buying a custom domain and mapping it with the Active Directory is the 5-step process. Step 1, we need to create the Azure Active Directory. In second step, we need to go and buy the domain name from any domain registrar. For my case, I'm going with the godaddy.com. You can go with any of your favorite domain registrar. For my case, I'm going to buy this techtalent.xyz domain. And third step is we need to create the custom domain in Azure Active Directory. And fourth step is we need to go to the domain registrar and create a DNS record that matches with the custom domain that we created in the Azure Active Directory with the domain registrar. And final step is we need to perform the verification for the custom domain in Azure Active Directory. So this Azure Active Directory will just try to connect to the domain registrar to see like if the custom domain is set up properly. Once we complete all these 5 steps, we are completely done with this lab task and our domain is ready to go. Let us look in action to see how to perform all these 5 steps. Okay, first step, I'm creating the Azure Active Directory. I'm going to option new. Azure Active Directory and pick the option Azure Active Directory. Okay, I'm in the blade. I'm hitting the create button. Okay. It expects 3 fields: organization name, which is Tech Talent, and the initial domain name. Every Azure Active Directory will have its initial domain name. For our case, techtalentxyz.onmicrosoft.com, and location is Australia, and I'm hitting create. Now the Active Directory is getting created. Okay, now the directory is successfully created. Okay, I have created the first step successfully, which is creating an Azure Active Directory. Now I am proceeding with the second step, which is to buy a domain name from the domain registrar. In our case, it's godaddy.com. Okay, I'm in the godaddy.com site. I'll go ahead and search for the domain name that I'm looking for, which is techtalent.xyz. Oops, I made a spelling mistake, typo. It should be XYZ. I'm hitting the search. Yes, techtalent.xyz is available. I'm adding it to the cart. Okay, now it is added to the cart. I'm continuing to the cart. It prompts for further value adds like privacy protection and few other things. I'm not interested in them, so I'm just choosing for no thanks option. So I just need a domain name. I don't need anything else. Okay, continuing to the cart. Okay, it prompts for the billing information. I'm just skipping this section. If you look at the total, it is just $1.88 is the total cost for this domain. I'm filling in the rest of the payment information. I'm completing the purchase. Okay, now my domain is ready. It has mailed the receipt to my email ID and the order total shows as 180 and my domain is now ready. With this step, we have completed the second step, buying a domain name from Registrar. Okay, I have completed the first two steps in the whole 5-step process, creating an Azure Active Directory, buying a domain from Registrar. Let us get started with the third step, that is to add a custom domain to Azure Active Directory. Okay, so I'm in the Tech Talent Azure Active Directory blade. I have opened the Tech Talent and looking for the custom domain. This is where you see the custom domain names, the left side of the blade. Hitting the custom domain. Now I'm in the page. Hitting the next add custom domain button on the top. Okay, it shows the side blade where I can give the custom domain name, which is techtalent.xyz. Okay, and then hit add domain button, which is at the bottom. Okay, now I have added the custom domain. It shows domain name has been added. So I have completed the third step, which is creating the custom domain. Okay, after domain creation, it shows the record type, which is txt or mx, and you see the three options here. This is very important. This is called record type. Actually, we need to take this value and update in the domain registrar for our custom domain so that these two gets mapped. So there are two types of record. One is txt and another one is mx. We can use whichever one of them we can use to map it. For my case, I'm going to use MX because I know MX is compatible with GoDaddy. So according to your domain registrar, you can choose whatever the record type you want to use in the domain registrar. So you see the four options. This is what we need to update in the domain registrar, which will be covered in the step 4. Okay, we have created the first 3 steps. Let us begin with the fourth step. This is configuring the DNS setting in the domain registrar for the custom domain. In other words, it is like adding a DNS record in the domain registrar for the setting matching with the custom domain in the Azure Active Directory that I have showed in the previous step. Let us look into it to how to configure it. Okay, I'm now in the godaddy.com and signing into my account. I have my account already created initially at the time of domain purchase. So I'm using my credentials to log in into the site. Okay. As soon as I sign in, it will show my product that I have purchased, which is a domain. So if you look at it, it shows Tech Talent XYZ domain, and it shows other options like DNS, manage, setup, and all those things. So we are going to deal with DNS setting. Okay. I'm hitting DNS. It takes me to the page where I can go and create the DNS record that I have initially mentioned. So here I actually need to add a DNS record and fill in the values that I got in the Azure page. If you look at, I have brought it here in picture to quickly show what are all the fields that from the Azure portal that I need to add here. It shows alias name, destination or point to address, or TTL, priority, and all those 5 fields. I want to go with MX option. So we are in the domain management, DNS management page, hitting the add button and choosing the type of record as MX. We can go with TXT as well, but I prefer to go with MX because I see all the fields exactly matches one to one. Okay, so host, I'm trying to type the same value that it displays in the host field in the Azure custom domain screen. I'm copying that at the rate symbol in the host field. Okay. Next is the destination or points to. Okay. So I'm pasting the same value from the Azure custom domain page to here. Like that, I'm repeating for every step. For TTL, I'm setting it as custom and entering the value 3600, which is displayed in the Azure. And the last option is priority, and I'm matching the same step 32767. Okay, now I have entered all the values and hit save. So now my MS record is created. With this step, I have completed the 4 steps. Now I need to do the final step to perform a verification of custom domain in Azure Active Directory. Once the domain is verified, we are done with the whole exercise. Okay, we'll get started with the final step, which is step 5, performing the verification of custom domain in the Azure Active Directory. Okay, I'm in the custom domain page, which shows the record type option, which is TXT or MX, which I initially shared in the previous step. So here, look at the button at the bottom, verify. I just need to hit it to complete the verification step. I'm hitting it. So it performs the verification, and the verification is instantaneous. It shows us verified. This is really surprising for me as well. I thought it will take a couple of hours or days to complete the verification, but what I noticed is the verification is instantaneous. So with this step, our custom domain is completely ready. We can go ahead and create the users within the custom domain, and whatever we want to do with this custom domain, we can start doing it. So with this step, we have completed this lab exercise of creating a domain, purchasing a domain, custom domain, and mapping to it, and performing the verification. Thank you.